I suppose you're wondering what you're doing here.
It hadn't crossed my mind.
Back in the 60s, a cult psychedelic TV series called The Prisoner was filmed here in the rather bizarre village of Portmeirion in North Wales. And it featured two cars which weren't actually in it that much, but they became synonymous with the show. One of them was this, a Mini Moke, and the other one was one of those, a Lotus 7. I've wanted to do this feature for a long time because these two cars are brand new versions of the old icons. This, for example, this Moke International is completely electric. And that, well, that does look the same as all the Caterhams that have since existed, but this one is extra special because this has got a tiny little 660cc three-cylinder turbo Japanese engine. So these two cars, the idea being they're taking the old classics into the new world for a new type of audience. So in this episode, I'm going to be taking that one out onto the amazing Welsh mountain roads. I'm going to be taking that one out around the little Welsh villages. You're watching The Late Break Show. I'm Jonny Smith, and this episode is proudly supported by blackcircles.com, Britain's largest online tyre retailer. I could tell you all about the backstory of Caterham and how they took the Lotus 7 that Colin Chapman sold as a kit and made it their own, and they've been selling it now for 50 years. And these are all the different ingredients because there's been so many different iterations of the Caterham. But this is the one I'm particularly interested in, and this is the reason why I wanted to review this as part of a kind of Prisoner double act with the Moke. These two cars aren't related at all, apart from that 60s show, and they're both kind of born in the 60s in some way. But the thing that I love about this car, this is a £29,990 car that you can build yourself. It comes as a kit. Or you ask Caterham and they go, yeah, for £2,500, we'll make it for you. But I kind of quite fancy building my own one day. And the reason why I'm taking this bonnet off is because A, it's really easy to do because it's just a sheet of aluminium. And what you do then is you give it away to a sheep that's passing by. And what you're left with is this. It's that big, the engine. 660cc turbo, there's the turbo. It's absolutely tiny. And I think this engine is derived from the JDM Suzuki Jimny. So you've got the engine from a little 4x4, and maybe the gearbox as well, the 5-speed, with a back axle out of a Suzuki Kei van, a small van, live axle. Hardly any power, 84 brake horsepower, 110 Newton meters of torque. It'll do 105 miles an hour if you absolutely screech it to 6.5 in fifth. But it's so much more than the sum total of its parts, as I've been finding out over the last 400 miles or so. I don't understand how that can make this car feel so swift. Sometimes when you're reviewing cars, you don't get to drive them for very long before you film. Other times you live with them for a few days before you start filming and you digest your thoughts. And the latter is what I've had with this Caterham Super 7 600. And I've driven this to a barn find shoot for the Late Break Show, then onto here. So I've driven it, well, it was reading 3131 when I got in it, and it's now 3589. I've driven it motorway, villages, cities, and now absolutely some of the best roads in the United Kingdom, I believe. in the North Wales countryside. Watch out for the sheep. These roads, luckily they're not wet right now, are just such a good reference for driving enjoyment. And so is this car. Because on paper, the Caterham Super 7 600 shouldn't be very good. Yes, it weighs 440 kilos, which is not a lot, but it only has 84 horsepower from that 3-cylinder Suzuki 660cc turbo out of a Jimny, a JDM Jimny. And the gearbox, I think, is also from the Jimny. And the back axle is a live axle from a Suzuki Kei small van. But you wrap them in the tubular steel chassis of the Caterham, nicknamed the Caterham, K-E-I, from the K car engine. And what you have is a car that'll do almost 60 to the gallon, 6.9 to 60, 105 miles an hour, and it will handle, even on these Avon 155 tyres. 155 tyres. When was the last time you drove a sporty car, or even any car, with 155 tyres? Unbelievable. We've got a very short gear throw from this shifter, a very chody looking shifter. Really firm brake pedal. Pedal box is tiny, they always were. And that's why I'm wearing Track Day Warrior shoes, because I just can't drive them otherwise. They are undrivable to people with big feet. You're down here, snug in the footwell, and this is a standard chassis sized Caterham. They do come in a bigger size. I'll put the dimensions on the screen, but they're for people, they say, over 6'2" who are broader. Now I'm over 6'2", but I'm not broad, and I do fit in this nicely. Pedal box is born for heeling and towing, because you kind of have to, because it's so tight. The little turbo, which is tiny, it really snorts and chuffs, and the engine tries so hard to please you. It kind of, there's no point in going right up to the 6,000 red line, because after about 4.5 it's all over. So there is a roof, and it's made of this sort of vinyl, and it doesn't fit very well, and I can't stand driving Caterhams with the roof on, so don't bother. But that lives in there. And there's also room in there for a weekend bag and a pair of normal shoes, because you need driving shoes to drive one of these, because the whole pedal box assembly is in about a 5-inch square hole down there. You do have loads of leg room, it's just that all the pedals are really close together, especially if you've got big feet. This has glass fibre, everything else is metal, aluminium, tubular steel chassis, but this has the heritage look, and that's one of the things that Caterham wanted to bring back. The 60s and 70s style, huge, long sweeping mudguards, which make people think that this is a really old car, but it's also terrible for aero, because you can imagine air comes in here and wants to try and lift the front of the car up, although I haven't noticed anything skitty about this little thing at all. You can unhook the doors if you want to, really, you know, amazing for security. It's 2 poppers to open the door, and then you just simply lift the door. Pretty sure you just lift it. And then again, you can just give the doors away to sheep or passers-by, like that. And to get in, it's really snug, but once you're in, it feels really good with a high transmission tunnel. This car, madly, has got £4,500 worth of optional extras on it. 700 quid for these wheels that just happen to be colour coded. They're in the Bordeaux red paint. This red piping costs extra. These seats have got leather on them. There's carpet on the transmission tunnel and on the back. Remember, this is a Caterham. We're not talking loads of luxury, but all this stuff adds up to like 4,500 quid. Doesn't look like much, but the armrest inside the door is a must. And because this is the heritage model with those old school flowing front wings, it's also got things like polished windscreen surround and stay, and the old school big polished side exit can. And, quelle surprise, it's got a full size spare wheel and tyre, even though it's one of the lightest, smallest cars you can buy in the country right now. But the magic really happens in the way it turns and the way it brakes and the way it steers. This got Bilstein dampers, it's got Eibach springs, it's got a really, really quick steering rack, and yet 155 Avon tyres, Avon ZT7 tyres. They look like they wouldn't be able to hold on to anything, but they perform so brilliantly on this car. When it comes to needing new tyres for your car, whether you've got a performance car, an EV or an everyday vehicle, go to blackcircles.com.
Head to the Black Circles website, enter your vehicle registration number and your postcode, and then you'll find the most suitable tyres for your car and your budget. There are thousands of reviews of different tyres from real customers to help you choose the best tyres for your car. And with the Black Circles Click and Fit service, with over 2,000 tyre fitting partners, there will be a garage or a mobile tyre fitter conveniently located near you.
If you've never driven a Caterham, it's something you must do in your life before you die, because to me, they've never been about the way they look. Never. They've always been about, they are the reference point as a driver's car. It doesn't matter whether you don't like the aesthetics. Everything is where you want it to be. And you think this car is, ULEZ exempt. This car is 109 grams per kilometre. It's 58 point something mpg. 110 newton meters of torque. It just wants to pull from like 3,000 to 4.5 especially. It's just a little joy. And I'm really, really, really in love with it. Here we go, a bit of standing water. What's bizarre is that live axle and the fact it doesn't have a rear anti-roll bar. That's an option, along with a couple of other bits on the chassis. It shouldn't grip as well as it does. It shouldn't stay where it wants to. Doesn't have a limited slip diff, that's optional. People think you're a lunatic driving a car with the roof open. It does have a roof, but it's rubbish. It fits like a bag for life over my head. It's just pointless. So you drive it with the roof down everywhere and you use the roof as a tonneau cover, and you've got the heating on. The heating's phenomenal in this. Phenomenal. So up to there I'm boiling. Even driving around town, the drivetrain is so nice and tight. The clutch is really wonderful. The car pulls away with hardly any revs. It's very, 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 very docile, and I suspect very cheap to service and live with. And being a Suzuki motor, probably very, very durable. Caterham is 50 years old now. And this is their car. And if they don't know how to make a good one of these by now, well, that's like a fish and chip shop not really knowing how to cook fish and chips. They know how to make a driver's car, same kind of recipe. They all kind of look the same. And this heritage look is the long flowing mudguards, which look like the ones from the 70s, or the Lotus 7s from the 60s, the original Colin Chapman car that was only available in a kit. And they've revamped it, but for a younger generation, I guess, with this drivetrain. Oh, cattle grid. Of course, made famous in the Prisoner TV series at the beginning. He's driving through London quite aggressively, and the number plate is something 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 KAR, or KAR something something C, car, in green with a yellow mouth. And he resigns from his secret government job, storms out of the government building, gets into this and squeals off, and then basically gets abducted and wakes up in Portmeirion, a prison where he can never escape. And you never know his name. He's always referred to as number 6. And he shouts, "I'm not a number."
For official purposes, everyone has a number. Yours is number 6.
I am not a number.
So despite the fact that the Austin Moke model went out of production many decades ago, it was resurrected in the 90s when the name was bought by Caterham, the Italian company that made mopeds and motorcycles. It only produced a few over 2 years and then it disappeared. And then it came back in 2015. These are back now, but they're EV only, and they're made, engineered, and they're built in the UK using a design team, an engineering team from all kinds of other car manufacturers like Jaguar Land Rover. Under the front there is the battery pack. Let me show you that. 2 rubber bungs, and then the simple bonnet hinges up. I mean, the premise for a Moke was always a simple car, and this again is a simple car, albeit electric. There's the battery pack down there, that grey box, mounted as low as it can. It's only a 10.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, lithium ion, so it's only a small thing with I think a maximum voltage of 107 volts. The charging port is down there on the side, we'll come to it. And apart from things like screen wash, there's your brake master cylinder right there, your horns, your strut tops for the suspension. Everything's really accessible. The grille is completely faux because there is no motor there. The motor's at the back. So what is this new Moke then? Well, it's a steel-bodied, obviously very utilitarian 4-seat car. It's got coil-sprung suspension. It has a range, a WLTP range of 54 miles, which is about 88 kilometers, I think. But they say the city range is more than that. It's up to about 80 miles. So the point being, it is definitely an urban car. Steel wheels, very basic actually. Mud flaps at the back, crash bars, LED headlights for low draw, and it's got things like a DAB radio, waterproof speakers, cause no doors, no nothing. In fact, this sort of token bikini roof or bimini roof is a bit interesting when you go above about 40 miles an hour. Now, right at the top of this test drive, I'm going to say, clearly this is a car that's either being bought as a toy, a holiday home car, which I suspect is why they sell quite well in the Caribbean and the south of France, maybe Welsh coastline. It's not going to be an open road car. It does a maximum of 50, so a 0 to 62 is not going to happen. Of course, in the TV series of The Prisoner, these are never used outside of the village. They are the village taxi for local service only. And Patrick McGowan, I think he did drive one now and again. And there were 4 original Mokes in the series, 2 of which survived. One of which is in the public eye and was found in Holland in 2011 and subsequently restored and then auctioned. It has a very annoying mandatory sound below 19 miles an hour, but now we're on the open road, we're doing 30. This is when it's at its happiest. And I do think that Moke, who have bought the name and reborn the car, they've got the fundamentals right of this. The way the brakes feel, disc brakes at the front, the way it steers, and the general kind of ride of the car is really good. Really good. Today is not as warm and sunny as what we were hoping for this double header video. Let's do VMAX and I'll explain a bit why. So VMAX, foot to the floor. I'm worried about losing my car pervert notebook because it doesn't have any doors. We're doing about 52. That's full throttle. The old Bimini roof is hanging on for grim death. I'd like to drive it without the roof if it was a very sunny day. Not possible. No heating apart from the windscreen, and it is getting a bit nippy now, and I haven't got a great deal of hair. With a range of 54 miles WLTP, they say up to about 80 miles city use. So if you were just driving it around Portmeirion, as per The Prisoner in the 60s, you probably would get more than 80 miles. It's only a small 10.5 kilowatt hour battery pack. This is quite a basic EV actually. What do you compare it to? Well, like a Renault Twizy, I suppose. Something like that. The Twizy's a great car, but it's only 2-seater. You sit behind one another. You've got quite novel EVs these days, like the Citroen 2CV that I featured on a recent episode. I'll put a link for the 2CV above my head. That's quite a slow speed, small battery low range EV. The gear shifter is quite vague actually. You have a little symbol there to tell you when you're in D or when you're in neutral or reverse. Yeah, I really like the way it handles, and I really like the way it, the comfort level. And it does feel really smooth and actually quite nippy at the kind of speeds I'd want to drive it around at, which is, 30, 20, 30, 40 miles an hour. Now, if you're thinking it looks a little bit similar to the original, but maybe a bit bigger, you'd be absolutely right. In fact, we did park it next to the original, and these are the differences in the dimensions. I'll put them on the screen. You've got these same recesses like the original Moke, and the original Moke did look very corrugated and kind of agricultural, and this uses a lot of box section steel. The original Moke has fuel tank inside these big chunky sills because there's no doors. This one, well, has these two little kind of like military cubbies. That one there is your Type 2 charger. Takes 4 hours on a 7 kilowatt supply. 2 hours to do 80% apparently. And in here, you've got your cable storage. So that's where your cables live. But in terms of storage, you've got this cubby at the back here, which is, I think it's like a metal box. And in there, you've got a reasonable amount of space. Well, I say reasonable, boat shoes, small hold or that, assuming that you'd be driving around when it's really warm and sunny, which is not quite what we got today because we're in Wales. Now, these cars already sell in the US, they already sell in the Caribbean, and they already sell in France. But they are restricted at the moment on the numbers. 325 cars per year in the US, 1,500 cars in the EU. But they say next year, the next generation of this, they'll be able to produce them in unlimited quantities. They've had over 200 safety and regulation tests for EU small series type approval. And up to 70% of the parts of the Moke International are sourced within Europe. And like I said, it's a UK made car. But because it's a brand new car and it's a road legal car, it's got to comply with various safety regs. So it's got, tubular roll cages with 3-point seat belts all round, high back seats for, neck, grab handles here. It's got a heated windscreen, but I don't think it's got any other heating. Well, I haven't found any anyway, but the heated screen is obviously useful. And then everything is attached to all the tubes. Disc brakes at the front end. But one thing I do think, having looked at it for a while, is I feel like it should look a bit more retro. I feel like these should be a bit more dainty. That should be maybe a bit more retro. The wheels should at least have chrome dome hubcaps or something to kind of bring the retro charm in a little bit more, because at the moment it feels like a bit of a halfway house between brand new and retro. Mind you, everyone who's walked past loves it. I'm coming into a village now. This is when it feels fine. You haven't got wind chill. And if you're wondering, well, I wish this was piston as well as EV, Johnny, I wish the customer got a choice. Well, actually, lots of short journeys, lots of stop-start, maybe sitting for a long amount of time in a holiday home, garage. That's when EV actually works. Now that it's got a bit damp, you forget that it's rear-wheel drive. Waterproof speakers, thankfully. And actually, to be fair to this little bikini top, it does keep the rain off you. I'm not getting wet. It is raining. I'm not wearing a coat and I am not getting wet. But I'm not for a second thinking this is a mainstream car. It has huge novelty value. And I'm not for a second saying that £30,000 or round about 30 grand is cheap, because it's not. To some people, 30 grand is a lot of money, but to some people, the kind of people I suspect who will buy this, 30 grand will not be a lot of money, and they'll see this as being a little fun little car that will probably sit in a second or third house, or could even live on a yacht. That's the market for the Moke. It does come with a 2-year warranty. It doesn't fast charge, but then a battery pack of this size, it doesn't need to. You have got a mode here, look. When I press it, it only works when the car is stationary. And when the car's stationary, it's normal mode, eco mode, and then there's a palm tree logo. And I haven't managed to find out what the palm tree logo is. Yeah, so there's palm tree mode. Oh, hang on. Palm tree mode's quicker. Okay, so palm tree means faster. Does it mean take me back to my beach bar because it's happy hour? So let's go quicker and catch happy hour. Yeah, suddenly the throttle's tightened right up. And if I'm faced with an option of would I want an electric Moke or would I want an electric beach buggy as my stupid, not very practical summer toy, I think I'd go beach buggy because I can actually go off-road in a beach buggy. I'm not sure. These are always too low. The Moke was never actually a very good off-road vehicle. As I'm going through the villages and the towns around near Portmeirion, you know, people do like it. It's a fun car. In fact, both of these cars I'm reviewing today, both the Caterham and this, they're character cars. Most non-car people don't realise that this is not old. Most people think the Caterham's a classic. Most people think this is a classic. You have to remind them, or they look at the number plate and they realise it's brand new. Just like Portmeirion, it's a place that's got an awful lot of charm and it's extremely eccentric, and you probably wouldn't want to live here. It's the same with these cars. These are not cars that a lot of people are going to want. They're not mainstream. They are not all-rounders, and that's kind of the point. The new Moke, what do I think? I think that it's extremely well engineered car and the build quality seems excellent, but I would like it to have a few more kind of authentic retro touches. There's a few clunks with the drivetrain which aren't quite right, and the dashboard, don't know, it is lacking a bit of charm. But of course it's a much safer car than the little original, which was flawed in itself. Caterham, absolutely love it. The Caterham. How could such a tiny engine from a Japanese car be so good in this? How could it be so good? It just seems to work. It's possibly the best Caterham I've ever driven, yet it's the slowest Caterham I think I've ever driven. I think this is a little masterpiece, and yet I don't particularly like the way it looks. I've never really liked the way that Caterham looks, but so many people do. So many other people admire it and want to talk about it, and I think that brings an awful lot of joy. Which one are you going to choose then? Well, it's not really a group test at all, is it? It's not one or the other. That's not the point of this. It's to bring them together here. That was my weak excuse to do this twin test. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Late Break Show. I want to say a massive thank you to Portmeirion. It's a wonderful place. If you don't know what this is, I'll put a link in the description because it's just brilliant. And I want to say thank you to my friend Sean for helping bring these two cars together. If you haven't already subscribed to The Late Break Show, please subscribe and comment. What do you think of the new Moke International, and what do you think of the Caterham? Let me know.